Hello, welcome to the channel Wise Stories. Enjoy watching.
Tearing the passport in front of her son, the wealthy mother-in-law handed the bride a bus ticket to the village. And when the groom arrived at the orphans, he was speechless from. On the eve of March 8th, the market was packed. Sellers were actively offering flowers for all tastes and a variety of goods for women, while men of all ages, looking perplexed, were trying to figure out what to give their beloved ladies. The weather was great, sunny, and a short, plump, pleasant girl was cheerfully calling out to customers. "Sir, don't pass by. Only 3 bouquets left. Look, such fresh tulips, the buds haven't even opened yet. Take them, you won't regret it, and they're not expensive at all. Delight your loved one." Enrica Segura was in a good mood. Her waist pouch already contained a considerable sum. She had sold almost everything, and it wasn't even lunchtime yet. Renato Manriquez would surely be pleased. The girl had recently arrived from the village, rented a room, and got a job as a seller at the market. She loved taking care of flowers, knew how to create beautiful bouquets, how to feed them properly, and when and how to trim them. Enrica was not a beauty, a round face, a button nose sprinkled with red freckles, mischievous curls, and a figure that was a bit too plump. But it was this simplicity that won over customers, who readily bought flowers from her, seeing her as a kind hostess. The kiosk owner, Armenian Renato, leered at the new employee's luscious curves and licked his lips, but Enrica was a serious girl and warned him right away to keep it professional. She was slowly packing up. Only 1 bouquet was left in the stall, and even if it didn't sell, it was no big deal. Suddenly, 3 teenagers with hoodies pulled over their faces rushed at her. Enrica barely had time to see them before they snatched her money pouch and ran off. The unfortunate seller screamed and chased after them, shouting through the market. "Help! They stole my money! Stop, you scoundrels!" A tall, broad-shouldered guy saw what was happening and tripped one of the fleeing boys, who tumbled and fell, but the other 2 didn't wait for him and were already gone, and this agile youngster bit the guy's hand hard, wriggled free, and disappeared around the corner. The guy howled in pain and cursed, and a breathless Enrica ran up to him, exclaiming, "Thank you for stepping in. And you got hurt too." But it was all in vain. They got away, the scoundrels. They tore the pouch right off me, only the strap is left hanging. All today's earnings were in there. The boss will kill me now. I didn't even get a good look at their faces, cursed them. Some people earn their living through hard work, while others live off others like this. Enrica covered her face with her hands and burst into tears. She was so upset, having been on her feet since 5 in the morning, worked so hard, sold everything, and now some thugs had stolen it all. The guy suddenly gently took her hand and said, "Come on now, don't cry. It's not the end of the world. What's your name? I'll help. How much was in there?" The girl sniffled and replied, "My name is Enrica. I just came to the city, thought I could earn some money, wanted to help my parents. And now this. Oh my, there was almost 30,000. That's a huge amount. Renato will definitely fire me and make me pay the debt." The guy smiled. For some reason, he really wanted to help this sweet, simple girl. There was something attractive about her. And he shouted to her, "And I'm Pablo Gutierrez. Don't go anywhere, I'll be right back." Enrica just waved her hand, not believing the guy would return. Why would he care about someone else's problems? She wandered back to her stall and started packing up. Tears were choking her. What would she tell her boss now? She could already imagine the huge scandal. But about 10 minutes later, the breathless guy returned and triumphantly handed her a stack of money. "Here, I withdrew it from the ATM. This is the exact amount, take it. Pay it back when you can. So don't worry, you won't be fired." Enrica couldn't believe it. She blinked frequently and stammered, "Thank you so much. You saved me, Pablo. I'll save up and pay it back little by little. But why are you helping me? Tell me. I thought things like this don't happen in real life." You're like a magician. I can't believe such a handsome guy paid attention to me. I'm not fashionable. Nowadays everyone is skinny, and look at me, I'm plump. Guys don't like girls like me. Pablo laughed and replied, maybe I'm not like everyone else, and I really like you. You don't try to be something you're not, you don't play hard to get, and it's easy and pleasant to talk to you. How about we go to the movies tonight? Or just take a walk? How about it? Enrica beamed. No guy had ever said such nice things to her before, and she immediately agreed. I'd love to. Where should we meet? Don't laugh, but I really want to go to the amusement park. We don't have such entertainment in our village, but I'm a bit shy to go alone, and I'm a bit self-conscious about my figure, to be honest. The guy happily responded, that's no problem, let's meet at the entrance to the Central Park at 7. You underestimate yourself, Enrica, your figure is fantastic, there's plenty to appreciate. Okay, see you then. Enrica gave the money to her boss, who didn't find out about the incident and was pleased. He paid Enrica for the day. Her heart was jumping out of her chest. What a day it had been, both sorrow and joy, everything mixed together. She started getting ready for her date. At exactly 7, Pablo was waiting for her at the park. He admired Enrica. How lovely she looked in that simple polka dot dress, and she wasn't fat at all, quite the opposite, she was delightfully plump, full of life. The couple had a great time. Enrica squealed and laughed, spinning on the carousels. They ate vanilla ice cream and cotton candy, as if they were both children again. All night Enrica tossed and turned on her old couch, sighing wistfully, recalling the passionate kiss Pablo had given her goodbye. But a few days later, the guy rushed to her at the market, all sweaty, avoiding eye contact, shuffling his feet, and stammering. Enrica, here's the thing. When I gave you the money, I took it from my mom's card. I'm still a student, not earning yet. And yesterday, she saw the expenses and raised a huge fuss. We have our own cafe in the center, called Gourmet. So my mom says you'll have to work off that money. She'll take you on as a waitress. I'm sorry this happened. I'm really embarrassed. To his surprise, the girl wasn't upset at all. On the contrary, she was happy and replied, well, let it be so. It's not your fault. Anyway, thanks for helping me out back then. It's tough at the market, cold, heat, rain on your head, and Renato pays pennies. I'm tired of it all. I'm okay with it. I'm not afraid of work. I'll do my best. And I'll be closer to you. We'll see each other more often. Maybe it's all for the best. The guy hugged the girl. Thank you, Enrica, for understanding me. You're so sweet. I've never felt so good with anyone else. Come tomorrow at 8. We'll get you set up. Enrica settled up with Renato. He cursed a lot because she didn't give notice, but let her go, having no choice. The girl was already dreaming of serving orders and getting generous tips, but things turned out quite differently. Pablo's mother, Adriana Gutierrez, was a very unpleasant person. She immediately snapped at the girl. Oh, so you've shown up? Well, good, I thought you had no conscience at all. Took someone else's money and felt happy about it. No, dear, you'll have to work off every penny. You'll be working as a dishwasher and cleaner every day until the debt is paid off. A month without salary. Understood? Go change. Enrica was stunned. But how will I manage everything? Pablo said you would take me as a waitress. The haughty lady looked at her as if she were nothing and sharply replied, Really? Have you seen yourself in the mirror? I have a respectable cafe. Why would I need a waitress who looks like a milkmaid? If you don't like it, pay the money back right now and leave. I'm not holding anyone. And forget about Pablo, he's my only and beloved son, and I'll find a worthy bride for him myself. Enrica sighed. She had no money. It was her fault, and she would have to deal with it. She agreed and sadly went to change. From that day on, it was sheer hell. The girl was exhausted, mountains of dishes, washing floors, and such a whirlwind throughout the shift, she couldn't even sit down to rest for a minute. By evening, she collapsed on her old couch and cried from exhaustion. She remembered her childhood, their struggling family, and couldn't understand why some people are lucky to be born into wealthy families while others struggle all their lives. Is it fair? You try, you work hard to make a living, you work yourself to the bone, and still, nothing changes. It's like someone up there is watching and thinking, I'll throw in another test, let's see how she handles this one. Enrica grew up in a small village on the edge of the region. Her parents were unlucky in life. No matter what her father tried, nothing worked out. He wanted to raise piglets, built a pigsty, bought feed, but ended up with a poor batch that died off, leaving only expenses and no profit. Then he decided to buy an old oil mill and press oil, took out a loan with a high interest rate, but that venture failed too, and nothing paid off. Their house often saw arguments and quarrels. Her mother was always tired and irritable. She worked as a dairymaid, leaving before dawn, with her hands in constant pain, and her earnings only went towards repaying the enormous debts that piled up like a snowball. From a young age, Enrica was chubby, taking after her grandmother, but she didn't eat much and always worked hard, helping her parents in the garden. In the village, this was not considered a flaw, but her father often sighed, looking at his strong-growing daughter, and said, "Oh, Enrica, why are you so big? You're growing like yeast. How will we ever marry you off?" "Well, never mind, the important thing is for you to find a good person. Don't be picky about suitors, just accept your fate." The girl felt so hurt, she was already self-conscious about her weight and didn't want to marry some tractor driver or mechanic without love. Her mother loved her, comforted her, and encouraged her. "Don't be upset, darling. If a man loves you with all his heart, he'll accept you as you are. You're my smart girl, my best helper. I only wish you happiness. Don't listen to your father, he talks nonsense." Enrica was very good at cooking and dreamed of becoming a chef, pursuing it as a profession. But after graduation, she realized it was impossible. The family was deep in debt, and there was no money for her education. Her parents fought. Her mother blamed her father for everything. He got angry, started drinking, and then health problems began. That's when Enrica made a decision and started preparing to leave. "Mom, enough. How long can this go on? It's impossible to stay at home. You've lived your whole life like cats and dogs, aren't you tired of it? Don't scold Dad, he didn't do it on purpose. So, I won't go to school, so what? I'll go to the city, find a job, and start helping you. Together, we'll pay off the debts." Her father frowned. "What are you thinking, daughter? What city? What will you do there? Who's waiting for you there? We don't even have distant relatives there, no one to take you in. Don't be silly, you need to get married, not run off to the city." The girl retorted, "To whom should I get married, Dad? Who will take me? Everyone laughs at us, calling us losers. And where to find a decent suitor? All the smart ones are already in the city, and those who stayed are either fighters or drinkers. Look at Mom, she's only 45, but she's completely given up on herself. Is that what a woman's happiness is? I don't want that." Mauro Segura waved his hand, as if to say, "Do what you want," and stormed out of the house, slamming the door so hard that the plaster fell off the wall. He felt miserable, knowing deep down that his daughter was right, it was all because of him. No matter how hard he tried to provide for the family, everything fell apart as if under a curse. But Enrica stood her ground, being a tough girl and somehow firmly believing that she could make it in the city and pull her family out of debt. Initially, she managed to save a bit from her salary and send it to her mother's account, who thanked her warmly. Now, however, she had fallen into debt herself. This sense of hopelessness terrified her. One thing kept her spirits up: Pablo hadn't abandoned her, and despite his mother's opposition, they continued to see each other. He encouraged her, comforted her, called her his sweet candy, and kissed her so passionately. How could she resist? Enrica was head over heels in love, eagerly anticipating each date and hoping that Adriana would come around and she and Pablo would get married. 2 months passed, and payday arrived. Enrica paid off her debt and hoped to receive double pay, but when she saw the meager amount she was given, she burst into tears. The cook, Salvador, stunned her by saying, "Get used to it, girl. It's always like this here. You work for 10 people, but when it comes to paying, they come up with some fine or withhold bonuses. I'm already long retired, and this is just a side job to keep from dying of boredom at home. But you should leave. You're still young, find a better place. You're not the first or the last to be shortchanged here." Enrica sobbed, shaking her head. "I can't. I love Pablo so much. And he loves me. I'm pregnant with his child. We've already filed our marriage application at the Registro Civil. It's okay, my suffering will soon end. I'll become Pablo's wife, have children, and we'll live like normal people." The cook sighed heavily. "You're naive, girl. Pablo will abandon you, no doubt about it. He's not independent, he can't do anything without his mother. And she definitely won't let you live in peace. The Gutierrez family is bad news, don't expect anything good from them." But Enrica didn't believe it. Pablo himself had talked about marriage, looked at her with such affection, and was excited about the baby. He couldn't betray her like that. Yet, deep down, she felt some resentment toward him for his lack of backbone. Why did he allow his parents to humiliate her so? Why didn't he find her a better job as his fiancée? He saw how tired she was and how underpaid. But Enrica pushed these thoughts away and endured, hoping for a miracle. Soon, Pablo had to confess to his mother that Enrica was pregnant and that they had filed their marriage application. What an uproar! Adriana shouted, her face red with anger. "Son, have you lost your mind? You plan to marry that nobody? And she's pregnant? How do you even know it's your child? I won't allow it, no way." Pablo stammered. "But, Mom, I love Enrica, she's amazing. We're getting married anyway, we've already filed the application. Stop yelling. We'll celebrate the wedding at our cafe next week. We've even picked out the rings." But the woman sprang to the cupboard, grabbed her son's passport, tore it to shreds, and laughed. "Here, take that. I'll throw that schemer out tomorrow, and there will be no wedding. If you dare go against the family, I'll strip you of everything, and you can go muck around with your peasant girl in the countryside. Use your head, why do you, a young man, need such a burden?" Pablo was scared, he wasn't ready for independence and certainly didn't want to leave his comfort zone. He thought his mother loved him and would gradually get used to Enrica. The boy was torn by guilt. On one hand, he truly loved Enrica, he had never felt so good with anyone else. With her, he didn't have to pretend, and she adored him. She genuinely appreciated any little gift or sign of attention. But on the other hand, he was used to living off his mother's money and couldn't imagine living without her support. Working a boring job every day? No, that wasn't for him. Enrica was scrubbing the floor, trying her best, when Adriana stormed in like a fury. She shoved the girl rudely, causing her mop to fall, and started yelling. "Get out immediately! You're fired. I will never acknowledge your child, and he will never be a Gutierrez. I warned you, forget about Pablo. Did you think you were so clever? Trying to worm your way into our family through the bed? It won't happen. Go back to your village and twist cowtails, and don't ever show your face here again." Enrica burst into tears, trying to defend her love. "Let Pablo tell me that, then I'll leave. We're going to have a baby together. Don't you even care about your own grandchild? How can you do this? What did I ever do to you? I'll be the best wife for Pablo. I love him so much, and he loves me too. Why are you destroying everything? Who will benefit from this?" Adriana dialed her son's number and yelled, "Son, tell this fat girl to get out, she's demanding to see you." She's prattling about eternal love. It's laughable. Enrique took the phone, hoping that everything would be resolved. Pablo would tell his mother that they were almost husband and wife and put her in her place. It couldn't be otherwise. The wedding was just around the corner. But her fiancé only mumbled, "I'm sorry, Enrique. Mom is against our relationship, and arguing with her is pointless, you know that. She even tore up my passport, so the wedding is definitely off. We need to break up. You should go home, it's better for everyone." Enrique was in shock and couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Pablo, how could you? You said you wouldn't betray me, that we'd get married. And the baby? What about him? You were so happy when you found out, and now what? Do you not care about us at all?" Her fiancé replied quietly, "Get an abortion, it's still early. Mom said she would give you money. I'm sorry." Suddenly, Enrique was overwhelmed with anger, and she replied sharply, "Go to hell with your mommy. What kind of man are you? Still can't take a step without your mom's skirt. What a fool I was to believe you once." Enrique kicked the bucket, spilling dirty water all over the floor. She stood defiantly with her hands on her hips and addressed her would-be mother-in-law. "Let some other fool work for you. You people have no shame. You won't see me here again. I've already worked off my debt, and you didn't even pay me my wages." Enrique left with her head held high, but as soon as she reached her rented room, she broke down in tears and cried until she was exhausted. She was in a panic, with dark thoughts swirling in her mind. God, how foolish I've been. My whole family must be cursed. I came to earn money and help my family, now what? I'm going back pregnant and penniless? How will I ever face my parents? How shameful. Maybe I should go to the hospital and get an abortion, find a new job, and stay in the city. She touched her belly, feeling for any sign of the life inside. Suddenly, she imagined herself walking and holding her child's hand, being embraced by them, being called Mom. This tiny, living being, no bigger than a poppy seed, was already there. Was it his fault that his father didn't want him? Did she have the right to take his life away? Could she forgive herself for such a sin and live peacefully afterward? Enrique knew the answer, she couldn't. So, she dried her tears and started packing her things. The big city hadn't welcomed her, it hadn't accepted her. She had made a foolish mistake by jumping into bed with a scoundrel. No one had forced her, it was her own doing. Now, she had to leave, she couldn't raise a child alone here. There was nothing left to keep her. By evening, she was standing at the doorstep of her parents' home with her suitcase. Her mother was overjoyed, hugging and kissing her. "My sunshine, my darling. Are you visiting? Why did you bring so many things? Good girl. How are you? Are you very tired? You look so sad, your face is pale, and even your lovely cheeks are gone." Enrique couldn't hold back and broke down crying on her mother's shoulder. "Mom, I'm such a fool. Will you forgive me? Won't you kick me out? I'm not just visiting, I've come back for good. I failed, I was deceived, worked like a horse for 3 people, and they paid me peanuts. I know you have your own problems, and now I'm here, too. But I have nowhere else to go." Her mother stroked her head while her father clenched his fists. "Are we strangers to you? This is your home too, stay as long as you need. Those damned capitalists, always trying to cheat the common folk, have no shame. Didn't I tell you the city is full of swindlers?" Enrique hadn't yet mustered the courage to tell them about her pregnancy, she was too ashamed. She started settling back into home life. But every morning, she was violently ill and would secretly run to the cellar to eat sauerkraut and pickles, which she craved intensely. One evening, she went to the kitchen to get a drink of water and overheard her parents talking. "Esmeralda, what's wrong with our daughter? Is she sick? She's pale, gloomy, always running to the bathroom. I don't get it. Maybe she should see the nurse?" Mother sighed heavily. Morrow, you're so naive. Were you never young? Have you forgotten how I used to eat pickles by the jar? Our daughter is pregnant. She's probably scared to tell us. Oh, my poor girl. The man jumped. Pregnant? Where's the husband? Who got her pregnant? What a disgrace. We'll be the talk of the town. Raised a loose woman. Who's going to take her now? What a shame. Enrica felt a rush of blood to her head, overwhelmed by shame and pain, knowing that even her closest family was condemning her. She burst into the kitchen and screamed hysterically. Yes, Dad, your daughter is a loose woman. My fiancé dumped me, listened to his mommy, decided not to marry me. You don't want a daughter like me, do you? Am I not dear to you anymore? Fine. I'll go drown myself. Bury me and save yourself the shame. Wearing only her nightgown and barefoot, she ran through the garden straight into the forest towards the river. Tears blurred her vision as she genuinely intended to end her life. What was the point of living if even her parents didn't need her? Esmeralda screamed through the house, grabbing her husband by the collar and shaking him. What have you done, you brute? How can you talk to our daughter like that? She made a mistake. She's young and foolish. She's not the first and won't be the last. What if she really drowns herself? I won't survive. Do you hear me? It's all your fault. She went to the city because of you, to help with your debts. Oh, the sorrow. Why are you standing there like a statue? Let's go find her. Morrow threw on his jacket and shouted. Forgive me, Esmeralda. I'll find her and bring her back. I'll make things right. Wait here, I'll be quick. The man ran through the forest like a madman, branches scratching his face painfully. He shouted, Enrica! Sweetheart! Where are you? Forgive me. Answer me. He was soaked with sweat and arrived just in time. Enrica was already knee-deep in the cold water, standing there, unable to commit the irreversible act. Morrow rushed to her, scooped her up, and carried her out of the water, collapsing with her on the shore. Breathing heavily, he said, Forgive me, daughter. I was wrong. I spoke nonsense in anger. What are you thinking, my silly girl? We love you, and we'll raise the grandchild together. I promise I won't say another word. Forget that traitor, let him go to hell. People will talk and then stop. We're used to gossip. Let's go home, it's cold, you'll catch a cold, God forbid. Enrica exhaled. Her father had forgiven her, and that was the most important thing. They would get through this together. Her mother rubbed her with alcohol, wrapped her up, and cradled her like a child, and Enrica's spirits lifted a bit. There really is no place like home. Village life resumed its routine. At first, the neighbors drove Enrica to tears with their gossip, calling her a disgrace for bringing a child into the world out of wedlock. Then, her father got into trouble again. He drank too much and, on a dare, tried to drive a tractor along a tricky path by the river. He lost control, and the tractor overturned into the water. The tractor was pulled out, but the farmer, Basilio Almanzar, who employed her father, was furious and demanded a huge sum for the repair. Her mother cried again, scolding her father. Nothing seemed to change for their family. Enrica rushed to help her father and went to the farmer to settle the matter. She expected to be scolded and thrown out. To her surprise, Basilio was a pleasant man, large and bulky, but with kind eyes. He listened to Enrica, who cried and apologized on her father's behalf, begging him not to burden the family with more debt, asking for any job she could do. The man pondered, looked at the plump, tearful girl, and then said, Here's the deal, Enrica. Your father seems like a decent man and not lazy, but he can't handle his drink. If he agrees to get treatment for his alcoholism and brings a certificate from the hospital, he can return to work. But there's one condition: you have to work as a caregiver for my son, Jamie. He had an accident 3 months ago, miraculously survived, but his legs are paralyzed. He's in a wheelchair now. If an operation were needed, I'd pay any amount to get my son back on his feet. But the doctors say that Jamie can walk again if he commits to intense physical therapy. The problem is, he's lost all interest in life and is severely depressed. He doesn't want to do anything. I've tried everything, but I can't get through to him. So, if you manage to get my son back on his feet, consider your father's debt paid. I'll also pay you a salary, and I won't be stingy. But if you fail, I'm sorry, but you'll have to cover the damages. You can use your maternity benefits for that. Think about it. But be warned, Jamie has a very bad temper. 3 professional nurses have tried before you, and none of them lasted. If you agree, I'll be waiting for you at the gate at 9 tomorrow. Goodbye. Enrica ran home, told everyone, and began begging her father with her mother. Daddy, stop drinking. Get treatment. Bring a certificate from the hospital, and the farmer will take you back to work. Please, for the sake of your grandchild. We can't take it anymore, pity us and settle down. The man lowered his head, feeling so ashamed he wished he could disappear. He had let his family down again. He quietly said, "Okay, I'll go tomorrow. I've had enough to drink, it's time to get my act together." "Oh, daughter, I don't know. I think you made a mistake agreeing to work as Jamie's caregiver. You don't know him, he's such an arrogant guy, never considered us as people. You'll have a hard time with him. I'm sorry that you have to go to him." Enrica just shook her head. "It's okay, Dad. We'll see. I'm used to difficulties, I have nothing to lose anyway." Her father kept his promise and got treatment for his alcoholism. He firmly decided not to torment his family any longer and returned to work for the farmer. Enrica started her new job and went to meet her charge. In the bedroom, on a huge bed, lay a young man about her age. He was unattractive and frail, clearly didn't take after his father in stature. He was unshaven and pressing buttons on his phone, completely ignoring the girl who had entered. She cleared her throat. "Good morning, Jamie. My name is Enrica. I'm your new caregiver. It's time to wash up and have breakfast, and then we'll do your physical therapy. Your father made a list of tasks for us, and we'll stick to it." There was no response. The guy didn't even turn his head towards her. Enrica sighed, went to open the tightly drawn curtains, and opened the window. Fresh air and gentle sunlight streamed into the room. The man suddenly grimaced and said sharply, "Put everything back the way it was and leave. I don't need a caregiver. When will my father give it a rest? Get out. I don't want to live, leave me alone. Or do you think I'm going to dance to your tune?" Enrica had no intention of giving up and, surprising even herself, she replied sharply, "Don't be rude to me. Look at you, lying there whining, saying you don't want anything. Why are you giving your father a hard time? You're an adult man. Aren't you ashamed? All you men are the same, only good at being rude and causing problems." Jamie was taken aback by her outburst and said, "What do you know about me to say that? You're nobody, just a servant. Why should I be nice to you? Not long ago, I was the happiest man. I had a girlfriend I loved. We were going to get married. The wedding was around the corner. Why did I agree to that race? Now I'm a useless cripple, can't even take care of my own needs. But why am I explaining this to you? You're young and healthy, you can't understand what it's like to be bedridden." Enrica clenched her fists, unpleasant memories flooding her mind, and she almost shouted, "So you think there's no pain or tragedy worse than yours? And ordinary people, just servants, can be treated like dirt, ignored, and insulted? You're pathetic. Now listen to my story." And she told him everything about herself, from her childhood to the present day. Then she added passionately, "And what do you expect me to do now? Leave, and then I'll have to repay every penny of the maternity capital to your father, leaving my child with nothing? Hang myself because I'm pregnant and nobody wants me? Shoot myself because my whole family is a mess? No way, I won't give up. Just recently, my father had to pull me out of the river. I tried to drown myself. But go ahead, lie there and whine. It's easier than fighting, climbing, trying to achieve anything. So, what now? Should I leave? Jamie called after her. Wait. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Okay, stay. I'll undergo the treatment. Maybe you're right, it's worth trying at least. Let's start over. I'm Jamie. Enrica exhaled, the ice had broken. She got along with the guy, and he started diligently working on his rehabilitation. It wasn't easy, it was incredibly painful, and Jamie sometimes lost his temper and yelled, but he didn't give up. And when Enrica first took him outside in a wheelchair, Basilio couldn't believe his eyes. He was so happy. My God, son, finally. You were lying there like a log. I had almost lost hope of seeing you get better. Enrica, tell me, how did you manage this? The girl just smiled mysteriously. Your son is a real fighter. He can already feel his toes, there's progress. If he continues like this, he'll definitely stand on his feet. 6 months passed. During this time, Jamie trained hard, Enrica gave him massages and warm-ups, and soon he was able to take his first independent steps with a walker. It was a real victory. The young people grew closer, became inseparable friends, joked a lot, and talked endlessly. The farmer was immensely grateful to Enrica and had long forgiven her father's debt. Morrow, too, had finally turned a new leaf, stopped drinking, and peace reigned in the family. However, Enrica found it increasingly difficult to work. Her belly was large, and she was very tired. Upon returning home, for the first couple of months, the girl still hoped that Pablo would come to his senses, miss her, and come to take her back, and they would reconcile. But that never happened, and Enrica realized that there was never any love, and her fiancé had just used her. The more she learned about Jamie, the closer they became. He gradually told her about himself. You know, you're right in many ways, Enrica. I grew up selfish from childhood. My dad spoiled me, my mom died when I was born, so I got all my father's love. He spared no expense on my education and my whims. I never lacked for anything, studied at a prestigious university, was into racing and motorcycles. Basically, I lived a carefree life. And I didn't even help my dad with his work. He did everything himself, working tirelessly day and night. I didn't even let him have a personal life. Once he brought home a woman, Sylvia. She was nice, domesticated, tried to get along with me, but I was terribly jealous, threw tantrums, behaved awfully. My dad gave in and broke up with her, and I was happy. Since then, my dad gave up on himself, didn't think about his personal life, lived for me. He built the business, worked for 3, while I just wasted my life. I fell for a girl later, met her at a club in town. Eleonora, such a beauty, a model, legs up to here. She knew her worth, and I chased after her for a long time, dreamed of marriage. Though now I understand I wasn't ready to provide for her independently. I didn't even think about what I wanted to do for work. Right before the wedding, I was participating in car races and got into a terrible accident. I remember little, woke up in intensive care. Of course, my dad was there, worried, and Eleonora came a few times at first, seemed sympathetic, but then honestly said she wasn't ready to live with a disabled person. And she left. If you only knew how bad I felt, how angry I was, didn't want to live. I felt like I was dissolved, trapped in my sorrow, took it all out on my dad, really wore him out. I didn't believe I'd ever stand up again, that was it. Thought nobody understood me, that everyone betrayed me. And then you came along and turned my whole life around. After your story, I suddenly realized I had to get back on my feet to make things right. You know? That I owe it to my dad to be his helper. He didn't deserve that treatment after dedicating his whole life to me. Maybe I won't run like I used to, but I can handle paperwork, reports, just fine. I want to earn honestly, not beg from my dad for everything. And I also want to be by your side, Enrica, protect you from all troubles, and be your support. These warm words and confessions pleased the girl greatly, but she doubted. Jamie, but I'm about to have a baby soon. He's not yours, he's from another man. Will you be able to love him? I don't want it to be forced, then everyone will be unhappy. You're right about everything you're saying, and I'm so glad you've changed. We all make mistakes, but it's never too late to start over if you really want to. You really are the closest person to me now. I've never been so open with anyone. But I'm scared. Let's not rush things. Time will sort everything out. After Pablo's betrayal, I'm afraid to even think about relationships. I've been burned badly. Jamie had a heart-to-heart talk with his father and started doing the bookkeeping. He became deeply engrossed in it and started to excel. Basilio was very pleased that his son had gotten his act together, as he had doubted it would ever happen. He began to praise Enrica. How fortunate it was that Enrica came to me in despair. I never believed for a moment that this silly chubby girl could last a day with you. And I was angry with her father too. But she surprised me. Tell me, what did she do? How did she manage to change you? Jamie smiled. I don't know, Dad. She was just honest, and I believed in her. And I think I fell in love with her. There's something about her, very attractive, like an aura of goodness emanates from her. Seriously. I'm even ready to raise her child. I want to build a family with her. How do you feel about that, Dad? She really changed me. Racing and thrills, clubs, they don't interest me anymore. I want to work in love. And she's not a chubby girl at all, she's just pregnant. And overall, it's so easy with her, it feels good. I've never had this with anyone else. I used to think love was about glamour, beauty, figure, to walk alongside and have everyone notice she's mine. But now I understand what nonsense that was. The main thing is for souls to connect. And with Enrica, it's exactly like that. Basilio was glad that his son had fallen for a decent girl and replied, If you and Enrica can build a family, I'll only be happy. Honestly. She's a good girl, even if not from the most prosperous family. But children aren't responsible for their parents' sins. So I'll support you in everything. And her child won't be a burden to us at all. We'll raise him and nurture him. Another month passed. Jamie was already walking confidently with crutches. His progress was excellent, he was in good spirits, and he wanted to show Enrica that she could trust him, that he wasn't like her despicable ex-fiancé. At home, his parents also urged Enrica to accept Jamie's proposal. Dear daughter, you don't even realize how lucky you are. You yourself say Jamie has changed a lot since the accident. He's taken responsibility, and he's ready to marry you and raise your child. Just think, it's such a chance to have a normal family. Their family is strong, his father is hardworking, they have means. Don't be foolish, agree. The baby needs paternal love regardless, and a father is not the one who sowed the seed, but the one who raised the child. Stop torturing yourself over that scoundrel. He's crossed you out of his life, so start your new life. Enrica thought about it and agreed, and Jamie was overjoyed. They modestly got married, quietly enjoyed their time together as a family, and began living together. Gradually, everything fell into place. Jamie proved to be understanding and tender. He didn't need convincing anymore. He wanted to walk properly as soon as possible to be Enrica's support. The villagers stopped gossiping and closed their mouths, though they wondered what the son of a farmer saw in this unassuming girl from a poor family. That day started innocently enough. Enrica was shelling peas in the yard, with Jamie assisting her. Suddenly, there was a knock at the gate. Maneuvering carefully, she went to open it. There stood Pablo, and she frowned. How did you find me, and what do you want from me? She asked sharply. Hello, Enrica. Pablo stammered. Get out of here. I'm married now, I have a family. I don't want to see you at all. Enrica interrupted firmly. Pablo looked completely disheveled, shifting from foot to foot, pouring out his woes. Why are you yelling at me from the doorstep? Please listen. You have no idea what a disaster has struck us. The cafe burned down, customers were injured, and one person died. It was all wood and plastic, it went up like a matchstick. The staff and guests barely escaped, but this poor guy got trapped in the bathroom and didn't make it out. Now there are endless inspections, lawsuits, and the tax authorities are on our backs. We need major repairs, it's all ashes there, we're on the verge of bankruptcy. Mom's in the hospital, her heart couldn't take the stress, and I just don't know how to go on. Who would have thought all these troubles would hit us at once? Don't think I've forgotten about you, I think about you often. We loved each other so much back then. I've never met anyone like you, really. But you have to understand, I couldn't go against my mother back then, it just happened. But if you're happy now with someone else, I'm genuinely glad for you. The reason I came. I heard you got married well, living in comfort now, so I came to apologize. Forgive me, Enrica, we acted badly. Maybe you could understand my situation and help with some money? I have no one else to turn to. When things were going well, it seemed like I had so many friends, everyone wanted to hang out, but now they turned their backs. So what do you say? Will you help? After all, it's not strangers, and it's my child. Enrica exploded at such audacity, waving her arms and shouting. You scoundrel! And your mother's just the same. How dare you even show your face here? You kicked me out, didn't even pay me the money I rightfully earned. You left me pregnant a week before the wedding. A child, you say? You told me to go and get an abortion. And now you dare to ask for help? Get out of here. Pablo didn't even think of leaving, instead, he pressed forward. Oh, so that's how you speak now, Enrica? Have you forgotten how I saved you at the market that time? Well, remember this, I won't let you live peacefully. I will demand visits with my son, and you have no right to refuse me. Enrica couldn't contain herself anymore. If I had known I would have to earn those money backbreaking labor like this, I would never have taken them from you. Some benefactor you turned out to be. Remembered the son, did you? Such a father is not needed by the child, a traitor. Get lost. At this point, Jamie decided to intervene. He hobbled to the gate on his crutches and threatened. That's enough. You were told to leave. No one is giving you any money, and forget about coming here again. Enrica is now my lawful wife, we love each other, and I will raise my son properly. Pablo suddenly shoved Jamie with all his strength and laughed in his face. Who? You? Pathetic cripple. Enrica married you out of desperation, I'm sure. Who needs you, a helpless invalid? And she's got a belly, nowhere to run. You two found each other, lovebirds. What a joke, you don't even match, you're shorter and have no face or skin, yet you're her defender. Jamie lunged forward and swung a fist, but the aggressor managed to kick him in the lower back just in time. Jamie couldn't hold on and fell flat on his back, screaming from the sharp, piercing pain in his spine. His vision dimmed, and Jamie lost consciousness. Enrica immediately rushed to him, shaking him, crawling on her knees and shouting in a voice not her own. Jamie! Wake up! Oh God, what have you done? You bring nothing but trouble. Basilio, help! Jamie is in bad shape. Upon hearing the cries, Basilio rushed over, horrified. He called for an ambulance and the police, shouting, You scoundrel! I'll sue you. You've killed my son. Who are you even and where did you come from? Pablo panicked and fled to the bus stop, not caring which way he went. His thoughts raced, what have I done? What's going to happen now? They'll find me and throw me in jail? Just what I needed right now, problems to the roof. Why did I touch him? Enrica, overwhelmed with worry, began feeling ill. She writhed on the ground, feeling pain in her abdomen, and her water broke. Premature labor began a whole month early. The emergency medical team rushed them both away, Enrica to the maternity ward and Jamie to surgery. In Jamie's mind, there was a fog, thoughts were jumbled. He struggled to open his eyes, but his eyelids felt heavy as lead. Strangely, he felt nothing at all, no pain, no sensation in his legs. His entire body felt like cotton, foreign, as if it didn't belong to him. Then he remembered he was pregnant, and in horror reached for his stomach, only to find it completely flat. Enrica cried out with a trembling tongue. "My baby! Where's my little one? Someone, help! What's happening to me?" Then her mother leaned over her, whispering, "Easy, easy, my dear, you're finally awake. Don't worry, you had emergency surgery. Your son, he's weak for now, but the doctor said everything will be fine. He just needs to get stronger and gain weight. I saw him, can you believe it? So tiny, but he cried loudly, a strong-voiced boy. He weighs 2 pounds 8 ounces, 49 centimeters. The doctor said if you had gone full term, you'd have had a little warrior. I was so worried about you, you lost so much blood, and you were under anesthesia for so long. I stayed by your side, praying for everything to be all right." Enrica exhaled. "Thank God, my son is alive, that's the most important thing. I need to get up quickly, I want to see him, hold him in my arms. Poor little thing, lying there all alone without his mommy. And Jamie? What about him? That scoundrel Pablo kicked him so hard, I'll never forgive him. Mom, don't hide anything, please. I can tell from your eyes, you're hiding something. Don't protect me, tell me the truth." Esmeralda wiped away a tear that had welled up and replied, "Well, to be honest, Jamie isn't doing so well. His vertebrae shifted after the fall, nullifying all your efforts with him. In short, he underwent emergency surgery yesterday too. The prognosis isn't clear yet, but we must hope for the best. Basilio is as dark as a storm cloud, Pablo has been found and is in prison. That's how things stand, dear." Enrica felt even worse knowing that her husband had essentially been hurt because of her, trying his best to protect her. What had he done to deserve all this? She nearly screamed. "Mom, in which hospital is he? Has he been moved out of intensive care? When will all these calamities end? If not one thing, then another." Learning that her husband was in a surgical ward next door, Enrica nearly jumped out of bed. She wanted to go to him immediately, to support him, to see him for even a moment. However, a sharp pain in her lower abdomen stopped her, and she gasped and lay back down. Her mother lamented. "What are you doing, my dear? Where are you going? You can't get up yet, God forbid the stitches come apart. I'll call the nurse right away, we'll ask. Don't worry, everything will be fine, the worst is behind us." The nurse brought the doctor, who examined the patient and allowed her to gradually start getting up. Most importantly, they brought her son for a short visit. Enrica took the tiny baby in her arms. He was so small, wrinkled, resembling an old man. He amusingly puckered his lips and scrunched up his face. Enrica asked, "Can I feed him? My breasts hurt so much, my milk is coming in. He must be so hungry without his mommy. Right, Lorenzo?" The doctor explained. "No, we'll continue to give you medication for a couple of days. He doesn't need to be fed yet, but you can express milk as soon as I give the go-ahead. He needs to strengthen up, he's still in an incubator, but he'll gain weight soon and be by your side. Your baby's indicators on the scale are good, so I don't think we'll keep you here for long, don't worry." Enrica kissed her son, held him close, tears filling her eyes. This was what motherhood was all about, only now did she truly understand it. This love for her baby overwhelmed everything inside her, such a unique feeling unlike anything else. The nurse took the baby away, and her mother went home. Later, Enrica's father and Basilio called. Everyone congratulated her on the birth of her son, wishing both him and her robust health. After the maternity ward staff finished their rounds, Enrica waited and pleaded with the duty nurse. "Please, help me. My husband had a complex spine surgery and is in the next ward. The doctor allowed me to get up. I must see him, even for a moment, to support him, to tell him how much I love him. It's very important to me and to him. The nurse shook her head disapprovingly. No, absolutely not. You were just operated on recently yourself. God forbid if anything happens with your stitches, you could get an infection. I think it wouldn't make things easier for your husband if you started having complications. Isn't that right? I really sympathize with you, believe me. Here's what I can do. You write him a note, and I'll run and deliver it. It will calm you down. Enrica agreed, wrote something with concentration, and handed it to the young woman. She faithfully fulfilled her promise and entered the ward. Good evening. Who here is Jamie Almanzar? She asked. The pale, thin patient by the window weakly replied, I am Jamie. What is it? Your wife sent a note from the maternity ward. She's very worried, crying. Here, read it and write a few words back to her. And be careful not to upset her, or her milk might dry up. After childbirth, a woman's body is exhausted, weakened. She can't afford to get nervous. Jamie's face lit up. He opened the note with trembling hands and read, My love, how are you? I wanted to come to you, but they won't let me. Our son was born. I named him Lorenzo. Hope you don't mind? I want you to know that you'll walk again for sure. I walked for you the first time, and the second will be successful. I need you. I love you. Now I really understand that. Hang in there, my dear. We are a family, and we can handle anything together. The man wiped away a tear discreetly and replied, Congratulations, dear. Not just yours, but our son. Lorenzo Almanzar. That's right. I will fight for you, for our son. I love you both and miss you so much. Basilio joined forces with Enrica's parents, and they took turns caring for the young couple, bringing home-cooked food and providing support. 2 weeks later, the baby strengthened, and Enrica and her son were discharged. But she didn't rush home. She finally entered her husband's room with their son. Their meeting was so warm, they both cried and hugged each other. Jamie asked, Enrica, put our son next to me. I want to hold him. He's so tiny, it's scary. Well, hello, my boy. You're born. Your mom and I will love you and protect you, and we won't let anyone harm you. And remember, you're my son, only mine. I won't let anyone hurt you. Then Jamie looked at Enrica intently and suddenly asked, I know you'll scold me for this, but still. What if I never walk again? What then? I'm so scared. Then just know, you shouldn't spend your whole life with a disabled man. I want you to be happy, not suffer by my side. Enrica cried, hugged him, kissed him, and whispered, Don't even hope to get rid of me. I'll never leave you or betray you. I'll always be by your side, hear me? I don't need anyone else. And let's not hear such talk again. I believe in you, and you believe too. I'll talk to the doctor, and we'll work on this together again. Everything will be fine. So hang in there, Lorenzo and I will be waiting for you at home. A week later, Jamie was discharged. Enrica's mother came to her house and helped with her grandson, especially enjoying bathing him. The baby was delighted with the warm water, relaxing and closing his eyes with pleasure. Enrica never lost faith and persistently helped her husband with his rehabilitation. The doctor was right. This time there was immediate progress. Jamie quickly recovered. It was as if he had grown wings behind his back. He couldn't let his family down. So many people fought for him, worried about him, and kept their fists clenched. Everything worked out for them, and within a month, he was walking even without crutches, just a cane. It was a great victory. It's amazing how all these problems brought two families together so tightly that now Basilio and Mauro were inseparable friends, and even Esmeralda felt at home in the farmer's mansion. They all had meals together, socialized, and alcohol was banned in the house so as not to tempt Mauro. Little Lorenzo was the center of everyone's attention. Enrica doted on him endlessly. They sincerely rejoiced at every little change. He began to hold his head up, smile, recognize everyone, and babble. Surprisingly, Jamie didn't even have to get used to the child. He immediately accepted him as his own son and happily played with him. He didn't recognize himself. He often thought, well, how changeable and amazing our life is. Just recently, I was rushing out of the house to parties and nightlife, and I hated the countryside, thinking it was the pits. And now I'm ready to give my life just to have my wife and son nearby. Nothing else matters. And it's only been a year. Basilio got deeply involved with the Almanzar family affairs. Jamie filed charges against Pablo, and his mother was already facing a considerable term for tax fraud and the death of a visitor in a fire due to gross negligence. What's more, it turned out that those robbers who snatched Enrica's purse at the market were staged. It was a well-rehearsed scheme. First, they lured the victim into debt through such cunning means, and then forced them to work for 3 people without pay. Enrica was shocked. She had thought Pablo genuinely helped her from the goodness of his heart back then. How rotten these people were after all. They orchestrated everything and manipulated her feelings skillfully. The trial was sensational, and both mother and son received substantial sentences. Their house was also auctioned off to pay debts. Pablo was roughed up pretty badly in the cell on the first night and was made to understand his place. He was always a coward and never amounted to anything on his own without his influential mommy, but now he was completely broken. He was constantly plagued by fear and hopelessness. Now he served his cellmates and humiliated himself just to avoid beatings. He often secretly cried and wanted to end his life, but he lacked the courage for that too. The once polished and well-groomed guy was now nothing. Pablo had turned into a pathetic beaten-down prisoner, and many more tests of endurance awaited him. Perhaps this was the price he had to pay for everything he had done. Adriana didn't last long at all. Anger and hatred literally tore her apart from within, not giving her a moment's peace. Just yesterday she had everything, skillfully manipulating people and determining their fates, and now she was a convict, number 757. The woman became closed off and embittered, and she died of a heart attack in the prison hospital a year later. 5 years had passed. Enrica and Jamie were living well. Jamie had fully recovered and now worked tirelessly on the farm alongside his father. He had sincerely grown to love Lorenzo and considered him his own. The boy was very proud of his father and tried to emulate him in everything. Enrica managed the household. Over the years, she had become even more beautiful, a stately mistress of the house. She spoiled her loved ones with homemade treats, and everyone especially loved her signature cabbage pierogies, fluffy and enjoyed by all. As for her figure, Enrica no longer worried, because Jamie looked at her with such delight and called her his beloved puffball. Enrica loved the village with all her heart. Everything here was familiar and dear, and peace and tranquility had settled in her soul. Basilio adored his bride-to-be and praised her in every way. He knew for sure that it was Enrica who had turned his reckless son into a respectable man, and he was very grateful to her for that. No one in the village remembered the times when poor Enrica returned home in tears and pregnant, or when her family seemed cursed. Now everything was different. Mauro and Esmeralda lived peacefully and quietly in their old age. They loved to sit in the evenings on the porch, crack sunflower seeds, and laugh as they reminisced about everything they had endured and overcome. They were very proud of their daughter and loved their grandson dearly. And that was the most important thing for them as parents.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.